The throne room of the Valorian Empire stretched for nearly a mile. Giant pillars of black stone rose toward a ceiling so high that clouds sometimes formed beneath it. At the far end, upon a throne made from the bones of conquered species, sat Emperor Zorth the Eternal. He had ruled for 300 years. He had never lost a war. Today, his advisors brought him news of a small blue planet on the edge of the galaxy. They called it Earth. "Show me," the Emperor commanded. A hologram appeared in the center of the throne room. It displayed a world covered in water and green land. Small metal objects orbited around it. Primitive satellites. Simple space stations. The Valorians had used such technology thousands of years ago. "They have only reached their moon," Admiral Korath Ven reported. He stood tall in his ceremonial armor, his 4 eyes fixed on his emperor. "They have no faster-than-light travel. No energy shields. No weapons that could scratch our smallest fighter." The emperor leaned forward. "And their population?" 8 billion, my lord. They call themselves humans." Laughter filled the throne room. The Imperial Council found this amusing. 8 billion primitives with rockets and radio waves. They would make excellent slaves. The Empire always needed more workers for its mining colonies. "Take the Third Fleet," Emperor Zorth commanded. "Bring me their leaders in chains. Kill any who resist. I want this planet under our flag within 1 rotation." Admiral Ven bowed low. "It will be done, my Emperor." The Third Fleet was the pride of the Valorian Empire. 500 warships. 12 planet crackers capable of breaking a world in half. 2 million soldiers ready for ground invasion. They had conquered entire civilizations in less time than it took for a star to complete 1 orbit. As Admiral Ven walked to his shuttle, High Priest Maltos approached him. The priest was old, his scales faded to gray, his eyes clouded with age. But he still held influence in the Empire. "I sense something strange about this mission," Maltos said quietly. "The spirits whisper warnings." Admiral Ven laughed. "Warnings about primitives who still burn dead plants for fuel. Your spirits need better information, old priest." Maltos did not smile. "Pride has destroyed greater admirals than you." But Ven was already walking away. He had a fleet to command and a planet to conquer. Far across the galaxy, on the planet Earth, the sun was setting over the Rocky Mountains. Deep beneath those ancient peaks, hidden from satellites and sensors, lay the most secret facility in human history. It had no official name. Those who worked there simply called it the bunker. Commander Lisa Grant walked through corridors carved from solid granite. She was 52 years old, with gray hair cut short and eyes that had seen things no civilian would ever know. She had dedicated her life to protecting Earth from threats that the public believed existed only in movies. "Commander," a young officer called out as she entered the main control room. "We have a situation." Captain Daniel Brooks stood before a massive display screen. His face was pale. On the screen, red dots were appearing at the edge of the solar system. Hundreds of them. Then hundreds more. "Unknown vessels just dropped out of some kind of faster-than-light travel near Jupiter," Brooks reported. "Initial count is over 500 ships. The largest ones are bigger than anything we've ever recorded." Grant studied the screen. Her expression did not change. "Configuration?" "Military formation. They're heading toward Earth." Around them, dozens of officers worked at their stations. The room hummed with quiet tension. They had trained for this moment for decades. But training was different from reality. "Have they made contact?" Grant asked. "Not yet." "Wait." Brooks pressed his hand to his earpiece. "We're receiving a transmission. Audio and visual. Put it on screen." The display changed. A face appeared. It was not human. 4 eyes sat above a mouth filled with sharp teeth. Scales covered its skin like armor. When it spoke, a translation program converted its words to English. Primitive species of the third planet. I am Admiral Korath Ven of the Valorian Empire. Your world now belongs to our Emperor. You have 1 hour to surrender your leaders and your weapons. Resist, and we will reduce your cities to ash. This is your only warning. The transmission ended. Silence filled the control room. Every officer stared at their commander, waiting for her response. Lisa Grant took a deep breath. Then she turned to Captain Brooks. Activate Protocol Omega. Brooks blinked. Ma'am, are you certain? Once we activate it, there's no going back. The whole galaxy will know. They came here to conquer us, Captain. They brought 500 warships to enslave or kill 8 billion people. Grant's voice was calm but hard as iron. I think it's time we introduced ourselves properly. She walked to her command chair and sat down. Around her, officers began typing rapidly. Screens flickered. Systems that had been sleeping for years began to wake up. Beneath the surface of Mars, something stirred. In the asteroid belt, hidden among millions of rocks, machines powered on for the first time in decades. Near the moons of Jupiter and Saturn, platforms that looked like space debris began to unfold. Captain Brooks watched the displays with wide eyes. He had known about Protocol Omega. Every officer at his level did. But knowing about it and seeing it activate were very different things. All platforms reporting ready. Lieutenant Kevin Morris announced from his station. We have full coverage from Jupiter to Mercury. 12,000 weapon systems online and awaiting targeting data. Grant nodded. She looked at the red dots still approaching Earth. The Valorians had no idea what was coming. How could they? Humanity had kept this secret for 80 years. Ever since the first alien probe had crashed in a desert in 1947, Earth's governments had worked together in the shadows. They had learned. They had built. They had prepared. The Valorians thought they were attacking a primitive world. They were very, very wrong. Send no response to their transmission, Grant ordered. Let them come closer. She leaned back in a chair and waited. In less than an hour, the galaxy would learn the truth about humanity. And the Valorian Empire would learn it first, the hard way. The bridge of the eternal vengeance had become a tomb of silence. Officers stood frozen at their stations. The only sounds were the quiet hum of the ship's engines and the soft beeping of sensors that kept counting the dead. Admiral Korath Ven stared at his tactical display. Where 500 red dots had once filled the screen, now only scattered handfuls remained. In less than 3 minutes, his fleet had been cut down from the mightiest armada in the quadrant to a broken collection of survivors. Current count, he demanded, his voice barely above a whisper. Navigator Thrall checked his readings with shaking hands. 53 vessels remaining, Admiral. The attack has slowed, but it hasn't stopped. We just lost 2 more cruisers. 53 ships. Out of 500. Ven had commanded conquests before where he lost ships. 12 here, 24 there. The cost of war. But this was not war. This was slaughter. What are those things? Sub-Commander Dreth asked. He stood beside the Admiral, his scales pale with fear. Our weapons pass right through them. Our sensors can barely detect them. How is this possible? High Priest Maltos rose from where he had fallen. His old body trembled, but his voice was steady. The spirits spoke of ancient powers. Races that came before all others. Races that learned secrets we cannot imagine. Perhaps the humans are not what they appear to be. They are primitives. Dreth shouted. We monitored their radio signals. They argue about politics and weather. They watch entertainment shows about cooking. These cannot be the same beings that just erased 400 warships. Another ship vanished from the tactical display. 52 remaining. On Platform 7, hidden in the asteroid belt, Captain Henry Shaw monitored his displacement generators. His station was one of 12,000 scattered throughout the solar system. Together, they formed a defensive network that could erase any threat to Earth. Shaw was 45 years old. He had served on this platform for 8 years, running drills and maintenance checks. He had always known this day might come. He had trained for it. But training could not prepare him for the reality of ending so many lives with the push of a button. Platform 7, this is command. A voice crackled through his communicator. Hold fire and stand by for new orders. Acknowledged, command. Holding fire. Shaw looked at his tactical screen. The remaining Valorian ships had clustered together, forming a tight defensive sphere around their flagship. They were waiting. Waiting to die or waiting for mercy, Shaw could not tell. In the bunker, Commander Grant studied the situation. The fleet was broken. The survivors posed no threat. Now came the harder part. Open a channel to their flagship, she ordered. Communications Officer Beth Warren worked her console. Channel open, Commander. They should receive us. Grant straightened her uniform and faced the camera. The display in front of her flickered, then showed the bridge of the Eternal Vengeance. She saw Admiral Venn standing rigid with shock. She saw the fear in the eyes of his officers. She saw the old priest watching her with something that might have been understanding. Admiral Corath Venn, Grant said calmly. I am Commander Lisa Grant of Earth Space Command. I believe we need to talk. Venn stared at her image for a long moment. This human woman looked so ordinary. Gray hair, lined face. She could have been someone's grandmother. Yet she had just killed 450,000 of his people without breaking a sweat. What are you? He finally asked. We are humans. The same primitive species you came to enslave. The same species whose radio signals made you laugh. The same species you gave 1 hour to surrender. This is not possible. You had no ships, no weapons. Our scouts saw nothing but space junk and old satellites. Grant allowed herself a small smile. We have learned to be careful about what we show to the galaxy, Admiral. Your species is not the first to visit our solar system with hostile intentions. You are simply the first to arrive with enough ships to require our full attention. Venn's mind raced. If the humans had possessed this technology for years, why had they hidden it? Why pretend to be primitive? Why let the galaxy believe Earth was defenseless? You wanted to be ignored, he said slowly. You hid your power so that no one would see you as a threat. Exactly. We watched the galaxy from the shadows. We saw empires rise and fall. We saw species like yours conquer and enslave others. And we made a choice. What choice? Grant's eyes hardened. We chose to remain hidden until someone forced our hand. We did not want to become conquerors ourselves. We did not want to rule through fear. But we also refused to become victims. She paused, letting her words sink in. You forced our hand today, Admiral. You came here with 500 warships to kill or enslave 8 billion innocent people. So we defended ourselves. And now everyone will know what we can do. On the bridge of the flagship, Sub-Commander Dreth pushed forward. You murdered our people. 450,000 Valorians erased like they were nothing. You call that defense? Grant's expression did not change. You call what you plan to do to us anything different? How many species has the Valorian Empire wiped out? How many worlds have you burned? How many billions have died in your slave camps? Dreth fell silent. He had no answer that would help his cause. We knew about your empire before you knew about us, Grant continued. We have watched your conquests. We have seen the ashes of worlds you destroyed. Today, you learned something important. There are consequences for cruelty. There are limits to power. And sometimes, the primitives fight back. Admiral Ven found his voice again. What happens now? Do you finish us? Erase us like the others? Grant shook her head. No. You and your remaining ships will be allowed to leave. You will return to your empire and deliver a message to your emperor. What message? Tell him that Earth is not to be touched. Tell him that any ship entering our solar system with hostile intent will suffer the same fate as your fleet. Tell him that we are willing to live in peace with the galaxy, but we will never, ever allow ourselves to be conquered. She leaned forward, her voice dropping to something almost gentle. And tell him something else. Tell him that if the Valorian Empire continues to enslave and destroy innocent species, we might decide to stop hiding. We might decide to do something about it. Today we defended ourselves. Tomorrow, we might defend others. The transmission ended. On the bridge of the Eternal Vengeance, no one spoke for a long time. Then, slowly, the hyperspace blockers deactivated. The remaining ships could finally escape. Admiral Ven turned to his navigation officer. Set course for home. Maximum speed. High Priest Maltos approached him. What will you tell the Emperor, Admiral? Ven looked at the blue planet one last time. Earth. It looked so peaceful from here. So harmless. But he knew now what lurked beneath that calm surface. He knew what humanity was capable of. I will tell him the truth, Ven said quietly. I will tell him we made a terrible mistake. And I will pray that he is wise enough not to make another. The remaining 47 ships of the Third Fleet turned away from Earth and disappeared into hyperspace. Behind them, the hidden platforms powered down and returned to their disguises. The battle was over, but something new had begun. Admiral Karth Ven stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Vengeance. Through the massive windows, he could see his fleet stretching across space like a swarm of metal insects. 500 warships moved in perfect formation. Their engines glowed blue against the darkness. It was a beautiful sight. A deadly sight. The primitives have not responded, his communications officer reported. Ven smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. They are probably too frightened to speak. Or perhaps their simple radios cannot reach us. He turned to his navigation officer. How long until we reach their planet? At current speed, approximately 4 hours, Admiral. Increase to attack speed. I want to be in orbit within 2 hours. The fleet surged forward. Ahead of them, the small blue planet grew larger. Earth. Soon it would be just another conquered world. Its name forgotten. Its people broken. High Priest Maltos stood in the corner of the bridge, watching silently. The old priest had insisted on joining the mission. He claimed the spirits demanded his presence. Ven thought the old fool simply wanted to witness an easy victory. Something troubles you, priest? Ven asked mockingly. The silence, Maltos replied. They received our message. They understood it. Yet they say nothing. They do not beg. They do not threaten. They simply wait. Perhaps they have accepted their fate. Or perhaps they have nothing to say, because words are not their chosen weapon. Ven laughed and turned back to the window. Primitive species always had defenders among the spiritual classes. Maltos probably believed these humans had souls worth saving. The Admiral believed only in power, and power belonged to those with the biggest guns deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. Commander Lisa Grant watched the enemy fleet cross the orbit of Mars. The red dots on her screen moved steadily closer. Around her, the bunker hummed with activity. Officers monitored systems that the public did not know existed. Weapons that had never been used prepared to fire for the first time. Dr. Patricia Cole entered the command center. She was 60 years old, with white hair and thick glasses. She had spent her entire career studying the alien technology that had crashed on Earth decades ago. She'd helped build the weapons that would defend humanity today. All platforms are synchronized, Cole reported. The dimensional displacement generators are at full power. We can fire on your command. Grant nodded. Explain the system to our newer officers, Doctor. They should understand what they're about to witness. Cole turned to the young men and women at their stations. Many of them had joined the bunker only recently. They had been told about Protocol Omega, but they had never seen it in action. In 1947, an alien probe crashed in New Mexico, Cole began. It was not Valorian. We still don't know who sent it. But inside that probe, we found technology far beyond anything we had imagined. It took us 20 years just to understand the basic principles. She pointed to a diagram on one of the screens. It showed a complex machine surrounded by mathematical equations. The probe used something we now call dimensional displacement. It could move objects from one dimension to another. The aliens used it for travel. We found a different use. Lieutenant Kevin Morris raised his hand. We turned it into a weapon. Correct. Our platforms don't fire missiles or lasers. They fire displacement fields. Any object caught in the field is instantly moved to another dimension. It doesn't explode. It doesn't leave debris. It simply stops existing in our universe. The room was silent. The officers understood what this meant. The Valorian fleet would not be defeated. It would be erased. Why have we never used this before? A young officer asked. Grant answered that question. Because once we use it, everyone will know. Every species in the galaxy will learn that Earth has this power. Some will fear us. Some will want our technology. We have stayed hidden to stay safe. But now we have no choice. She turned back to the main display. The Valorian fleet had passed the asteroid belt. They would reach Earth in less than an hour. All platforms report ready, Morris announced. 12,000 displacement generators standing by. We have full coverage of the approach corridor. Grant stood from her chair. This was the moment. 80 years of preparation came down to the next few minutes. Target the lead ships first, she ordered. Work backward through their formation. I want this done fast. No survivors until I say otherwise. On the bridge of the Eternal Vengeance, a young navigator named Threll monitored his sensors. He was barely an adult by Valorian standards, serving his first tour on a warship. He had dreamed of conquest and glory. Today was supposed to be easy. A primitive world with no real defenses. Then his sensors went strange. Admiral, Threll said, his voice uncertain. I'm detecting unusual readings throughout this region of space. Ven frowned. What kind of readings? I'm not sure. There are objects appearing on my sensors. Thousands of them. They weren't there a moment ago. The Admiral walked to the navigation station. He looked at the display. Red dots were appearing everywhere, between the ships, around the ships, forming a sphere that surrounded the entire fleet. What is this? Ven demanded. Before anyone could answer, the first ship vanished. It was a cruiser on the outer edge of the formation. One moment, it was there. The next moment, it was gone. No explosion. No flash of light. It simply ceased to exist. Report. Ven shouted. The Crimson Blade is gone, Admiral. No wreckage, no life pods, no signal. Another ship vanished. Then another. Then 5 more at once. Thrall watched his display with horror. The ships weren't being destroyed. They were being erased. One by one, the proud vessels of the Third Fleet blinked out of existence like stars swallowed by darkness. Return fire, Ven screamed. Target those objects and destroy them. The remaining ships opened fire. Plasma beams and missiles streaked toward the mysterious platforms. but the weapons passed through empty space. The platforms had already moved, appearing somewhere else, continuing their deadly work. In 30 seconds, 200 ships were gone. High Priest Maltos fell to his knees. "The spirits warned me," he whispered. "They tried to tell me. This world is not prey. This world is death itself." Admiral Venn gripped the railing of his command platform. His fleet was disappearing around him. His mighty armada was being swallowed by invisible demons, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. "Retreat," he finally ordered. "All ships, activate hyperspace drives. Get us out of here." But when the ships tried to jump to hyperspace, nothing happened. Something was blocking their drives. They were trapped. Thrall looked at his admiral with young, terrified eyes. "Sir, what do we do?" Van had no answer. In all his years of conquest, he had never faced anything like this. He had come to enslave a primitive world. Instead, he had led his fleet into a trap from which there was no escape. On Earth, Commander Grant watched the red dots disappear one by one. Her face showed no joy, no satisfaction, only grim determination. 300 ships eliminated, Morris reported. Remaining vessels are attempting to retreat, but the hyperspace blockers are holding. Grant nodded slowly. "Good. Slow down the attack. Leave some of them alive. They need to deliver a message." The erasure continued, but at a slower pace now. The Valorians would not all die today. Some would survive to tell the galaxy what happened here. To tell them about the humans. To tell them to stay away. The throne room of the Valorian Empire had never been so quiet. Thousands of nobles, generals, priests, and advisors stood in perfect silence. Their eyes were fixed on the massive holographic display floating above the central floor. It showed the recording that Admiral Karth Van had brought back from Earth. They watched 500 warships approach a small blue planet. They watched those ships begin to disappear, one by one, then dozens at a time. No explosions, no battle, just erasure. In less than 3 minutes, the mightiest fleet in the quadrant ceased to exist. When the recording ended, Emperor Zorath, the Eternal, rose from his throne. His scales had turned pale. His 4 eyes burned with something between rage and fear. "How is this possible?" he demanded. Admiral Venn stood before his emperor, stripped of his medals and insignia. He had failed. In the Empire, failure meant death. But first, he would answer questions. "We do not know, my emperor. Their technology is beyond our understanding. Our weapons were useless. Our shields meant nothing. They did not even need to aim. The attacks came from everywhere at once. And yet they let you live. Why? To deliver a message." Venn looked up at his ruler. "They want us to know that Earth is not to be touched. They said any ship that enters their system with hostile intent will be destroyed. They also said that if we continue our conquests, they might stop hiding and come for us." Murmurs spread through the throne room. The nobles whispered to each other. The generals exchanged worried glances. For centuries, the Valorian Empire had been the most powerful force in the known galaxy. Now, they had discovered something far worse. Emperor Zorath slammed his fist against his throne. "We will not bow to primitives. Gather the full Imperial armada. Every ship from every colony. We will return to Earth with 10,000 vessels and burn that planet to ash." "My Emperor, please." Council member Sarah stepped forward. She was old for a Valorian, her scales weathered by time, but her mind remained sharp. "Think about what you are proposing." The Third Fleet was destroyed in seconds. Our finest admiral could do nothing. What makes you believe 10,000 ships would fare any better? Because no species can stand against the full might of our empire. The humans do not need to stand against us. They simply need to make us disappear. Did you not watch the recording? Our ships did not fight. They did not even see their attackers. They just stopped existing. Zorath's eyes narrowed. You suggest we show weakness? That we let this insult go unpunished? I suggest we show wisdom. Sarath turned to face the assembled nobles. The humans hid their power for decades, perhaps centuries. They could have revealed themselves at any time. They could have conquered weaker species, as we have done. But they chose to remain in the shadows. Why? High Priest Maltos spoke up. He had returned with the fleet and had spent days meditating on what he had witnessed, because they feared what they might become. I spoke briefly with their commander. She showed no joy in destroying our fleet, only grim determination. These humans understand the danger of power. They have chosen restraint over domination. And that is supposed to comfort me? Zorath growled. That the most dangerous species in the galaxy has chosen to be merciful? It should, my Emperor. Because if they had chosen to be cruel, we would already be extinct. The throne room fell silent again. The truth of those words hung in the air like poison. The Valorian Empire had spent centuries believing it was the apex predator of the galaxy. Now they knew they were merely tolerated by something far more powerful. General Kreth, commander of the home fleet, stepped forward. The priest speaks wisely. We should not seek another confrontation with Earth, but we cannot appear weak to other species. If word spreads that we retreated from primitives, our subject worlds may revolt. Then what do you suggest? The Emperor asked bitterly. Diplomacy. We send an envoy to Earth. We negotiate a treaty. We present it to the galaxy not as surrender, but as wisdom. We tell our subjects that the Empire has found an ally powerful enough to deserve respect. Sarath nodded. And we begin to change our ways. The human commander warned us. She said, if we continue to enslave and destroy, they might intervene. We should take that warning seriously. Emperor Zorath stared at his advisors. These were the finest minds in his empire. Warriors, priests, politicians. All of them were telling him to back down, to accept that his mighty civilization had met its match. He had ruled for 300 years. He had never accepted defeat. But he had also never faced an enemy like this. Very well, he said finally. We will send diplomats to Earth. We will seek peace. He pointed at Admiral Ven. You will lead the diplomatic mission. You have seen what they can do. Perhaps you can convince them we are worth speaking to. Ven bowed low. He had expected execution. Instead, he was being given a chance at redemption. On Earth, the days following the battle were filled with secret meetings. Commander Grant met with General Marcus Cole, the Supreme Commander of Earth's unified military forces. Together, they briefed the leaders of every major nation on what had happened. The world's governments had cooperated in secret for 80 years. They had built the defense network together. They had agreed to hide their power from the galaxy. Now they had to decide what came next. We can't go back to hiding, General Cole said during one meeting. The Valorians know about us now. Soon, the whole galaxy will know. Every species will want to understand how we erased a fleet in seconds. President Martinez of the United States leaned forward. What do we tell our own people? 8 billion humans have no idea that alien life exists, let alone that we just fought a war. We tell them the truth, said Chancellor Weber of Germany. Slowly, carefully, we prepare them for a galaxy that is much bigger and more dangerous than they imagined. Prime Minister Okonkwo of Nigeria shook her head. This will change everything. Our religions, our politics, our sense of identity. We are no longer alone in the universe. We never were, Grant replied. We simply kept the secret to protect ourselves. Now that secret is out. We need to decide who we want to be. The debates continued for weeks. Some leaders wanted to remain isolated, to keep the defense network active and reject all contact with alien species. Others wanted to reach out, to share technology and build alliances. In the end, they chose a middle path. Earth would open diplomatic relations with the galaxy. They would share some technology with species that agreed to certain conditions. No slavery, no wars of conquest, no destruction of inhabited worlds. The Valorian envoy arrived 3 months after the battle. Admiral Ven led a small delegation aboard an unarmed transport ship. They came with gifts and apologies. They came to beg for peace. Commander Grant met them in orbit around Earth, aboard a station that had appeared from nowhere. The Valorians realized that the platforms they had seen were only a small fraction of humanity's true capabilities. "We have considered your Emperor's request for diplomatic relations," Grant told Ven. "We are willing to discuss peace. But you need to understand something first." "What is that, Commander?" "We did not reveal ourselves because we wanted to. We revealed ourselves because you gave us no choice. The galaxy now knows about Earth. Other species will come. Some will want peace. Some will want war. Some will want our technology." She looked directly into Ven's eyes. "We will give peace to those who deserve it. We will defend ourselves against those who threaten us. And we will protect the innocent against those who would harm them. That is who humanity has chosen to be." Ven bowed his head. "And the Valorian Empire? What must we do to earn your peace?" "Free your slaves. End your conquests. Join the galaxy as citizens, not conquerors." It was a heavy price. Centuries of tradition and power swept away by a single demand. But Ven remembered the ships disappearing. He remembered the helpless terror on his bridge. He remembered that humanity had chosen mercy when they could have chosen extinction. "I will take your terms to my Emperor," he said. Grant nodded. "We will be watching." 6 months had passed since the Battle of Earth. Galaxy had changed more in those months than it had in the previous 1,000 years. The recording of the Third Fleets. Destruction spread through every civilization, every space station, every colony world. Species that had never heard of Earth now whispered its name with fear and wonder. The small blue planet on the edge of the galaxy had become the most famous and most feared world in existence. The Valorian Empire kept its word. Emperor Zareth, faced with the choice between reform and extinction, chose reform. The slave camps were opened. The conquered species were given their freedom. Centuries of brutal expansion ended not with a war, but with a warning. Not everyone in the Empire accepted the change. Hardliners spoke of revenge and honor. Some admirals plotted secret attacks against Earth, but those plots always failed. Somehow, the humans seemed to know about them before they even began. Ships gathered for secret missions disappeared without trace. Rebel leaders were found dead in their beds. The message was clear. Earth was always watching. On the Valorian throne world, a new era was beginning. Ambassador Nicole Price walked through the halls of the Imperial Palace, flanked by her security team. She was the first human to officially represent Earth to an alien civilization. The weight of that responsibility showed in her careful steps and measured expressions. Council. Member Sareth met her at the entrance to the Great Hall. The old Valorian had become the leader of the reform movement, working to transform her empire from conqueror to partner. "Ambassador Price, welcome to our world. I hope your journey was comfortable." Price smiled politely. "Very comfortable, thank you. Our new ships make the trip quite short. 3 days instead of 3 weeks." Sareth hid her surprise, but Price noticed a flicker in her eyes. 3 days to cross half the galaxy. The humans had technology that made Valorian hyperspace drives look like children's toys. "I understand you wish to discuss trade agreements," Sarah said. "Among other things, Earth is prepared to share certain technologies with the Empire. Medical advances, agricultural improvements, energy systems that don't require burning planets for fuel. And what do you want in return? Peace, cooperation, and a promise that the reforms your Emperor announced will actually happen. We have watched empires promise change before. We have watched them break those promises. We are patient, council member, but we are not fools. Sareth nodded slowly. You have concerns about our sincerity. We have concerns about everyone's sincerity. Trust is earned, not given. Your empire enslaved billions of beings for centuries. Forgiveness takes time. They walked together through gardens filled with strange flowers. Alien birds sang in trees with silver leaves. It was beautiful, Price admitted to herself. The Valorians had created wonders alongside their horrors. May I ask you something personal, Ambassador? Sareth said, Of course. Your species hid for so long. You watched the galaxy without intervening. You saw our conquests, our cruelty, our crimes. Why did you never stop us before? Price considered the question carefully. It was something humans had debated among themselves for decades. Because we were afraid of what we might become, she finally answered. Our history is filled with empires that started with good intentions and ended with tyranny. We have conquered each other. We have enslaved each other. We have committed great evils in the name of great causes. She paused, looking up at the alien sky. When we discovered we had power beyond anything the galaxy had seen, we made a choice. We would not use that power to rule. We would not become the thing we feared. Instead, we hid. We watched. We waited. And we hoped that we would never have to reveal ourselves. But we forced your hand. Yes, and now we must find a new path. We cannot hide anymore. We cannot pretend to be primitives. So we have decided to use our power differently. Not to conquer, but to protect. Not to rule, but to guide. Not to destroy, but to build. Sareth studied the human woman. She had met conquerors before. She had negotiated with tyrants and warlords. But Ambassador Price was something new. Something that gave her hope for the future. I believe you, Sareth said quietly. And I think that is the most frightening thing of all. Back on Earth, Director Paul Bennett stood before cameras broadcasting to every nation on the planet. Today was the day humanity learned the truth. My fellow citizens of Earth, he began. For 80 years, your governments have kept a secret. We are not alone in the universe. Intelligent life exists throughout the galaxy. Some of that life is peaceful. Some of it is not. He explained everything. The alien probes. The reverse-engineered technology. The hidden defense network. The Battle of Earth that had happened without most people knowing. 6 months ago, an alien empire sent 500 warships to conquer our world. They believed we were primitive. They believed we would be easy prey. They were wrong. The recording played. People around the world watched in shock as an alien fleet was erased from existence. They watched their own species demonstrate power beyond imagination. We did not choose this fight, Bennett continued. But we won it. And now the galaxy knows about us. Ships from other species will come to Earth. Some will be friends. Some will be enemies. But none will ever again make the mistake of thinking we are weak. He straightened his shoulders and looked directly into the cameras. Today, humanity takes its place among the stars. Not as conquerors. Not as victims. But as equals. We will trade with those who trade fairly. We will ally with those who share our values. And we will defend ourselves and others against those who would do harm. The broadcast ended. Around the world, people struggled to process what they had learned. Some were terrified. Some were excited. Some refused to believe. but all of them understood that everything had changed. 1 year later, the first human galactic council met on a space station orbiting Earth. Representatives from 12 species gathered to discuss trade, diplomacy, and peace. The Valorians were there, transformed from conquerors to partners. So were species they had once enslaved, now free and rebuilding. Ambassador Price addressed the council. "We welcome you to Earth space. A year ago, we were enemies. Today, we sit as colleagues. That gives us hope for the future." Council member Sarith raised her hand to speak. "A year ago, my empire came to conquer your world. Instead, we were taught a lesson we will never forget. Power does not give the right to rule. Strength does not give the right to oppress. And sometimes, the species that looks weakest is the one you should fear most." She turned to face the Earth hanging in the viewport behind them. "I asked Ambassador Price once why humanity hid for so long. She told me you were afraid of what you might become. I understand now. You had the power to rule the galaxy. You chose wisdom instead." Price nodded slowly. "We are not perfect. We have made terrible mistakes in our history. But we learned from those mistakes. We learned that power without restraint leads to ruin. We learned that fear without hope leads to tyranny. And we learned that the true measure of strength is not what you can destroy, but what you can build." She looked around the council chamber at the gathered species. Former enemies, future allies. This is what we choose to build. A galaxy where different species can live in peace. Where the strong protect the weak. Where power serves justice, not the other way around. Outside the station, Earth turned slowly in the sunlight. The small blue planet that had surprised the galaxy. The primitive world that had erased an empire. The humans had finally revealed themselves, and nothing would ever be the same.